my second course holding, filet, mid-rare, halibut.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another amazing pod, Late Night with Chefs, Truffle Boy and Doug reporting for duty, and we got Doug back. Doug's been busy, but we
I'm
have a
here.
super exciting guest for you guys coming from California. Doug, introduce our guest chef of the evening, please.
Most definitely. Hello, everybody. Tonight, we are going to be talking to Chef Kristen Shaw. If you guys know Chef Kristen, she is CDC right now at Sorrel Restaurant out of California. How's it going tonight, Chef?
Great. Thank you guys for having me. Seriously, this is quite a treat.
Yeah, you're very welcome. We appreciate you coming on and sharing your perspective with the Late Night with Chef fam. As Vlad mentioned, good to be back as well. Last night, I took a little hiatus to Asheville, North Carolina. I know it's a very popular place, but believe it or not, it was actually my first time there and quite an experience. I don't know, Chef, have you ever been to Asheville?
I have
No.
not been out of California yet.
Ah, well, if you ever decide to go on the complete opposite coast, highly recommend Asheville. We had some really great food. Blackbird, just I think I summed it down to they really have a lot of quality ingredients out there with the farms that they have. A lot of quality year-round ingredients that I don't see in Florida, unfortunately. But overall, whether it was a really fine dining restaurant or a really just mom and pop barbecue shop, really good food. So it was quite an experience. But either way, we're here to interview Chef Kristen. So, Chef, if you want to just take us into kind of your early childhood, where did sort of your culinary adventure start?
Honestly, if I take you back to my culinary years, it's not that far back. I definitely started a lot later than most people. I started cooking when I was 24. It kind of just fell into my lap. Not really something I was looking for per se. Um, but I do have, like, I want to say, a colorful background. I come from South Africa. I grew up there until the age of 12, and then my parents moved us to France, just outside of Paris. So I guess what's amazing about South Africa and South African cuisine, it's not very well known, but
No, I'd say not.
yeah, we have this amazing heritage of flavors and spice, and South Africa and the Cape of Good Hope was one of the major ports for the spice route back in the day. So we have a lot of Indian influences, a lot of Malay influences, the British, the French, the Dutch. So it really does create this beautiful melting pot of flavors and culture
Yeah.
and just diversity. I mean, South Africa in itself, there's 13 national languages, which it makes for a really interesting, I guess, palette.
Yeah. So, bringing us a little bit into that, because like you said, it's sort of one of those cuisines that are rarely sort of talked about or advocated for. What was that early childhood experience like? Do you remember having, specific dishes that were made at home or, going out to a specific dining experience in South Africa?
Everything's very rootsy. There's nothing. I don't ever remember going to eat somewhere fancy. I just remember my grandmother cooking for us a lot, and also our caretaker, because that's just kind of the thing in South Africa. You have a gardener, you have a caretaker who looks after the house, and as we were kids, she would carry us around on her back, and she would cook for us, and there was a lot of spices involved, and there was a lot of maize meal, so kind of like polenta, pretty heavy, just because a lot of the population is poorer, so it's really a question of sustenance,
Mm,
uh, and then figuring out a way to build flavor within something that's pretty basic.
mm,
What I love about it is that I come from Durban, which is on the East Coast, and there's a very large Indian population. It's actually the second largest Indian population outside of India. So just to give you an idea, and again, like I grew up eating really spicy curries. I, grew up eating just a lot of really weird stuff that I think moving to France, no one ever really understood, or it wasn't palatable to them. Uh,
yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of been interesting to see that movement from growing up there and not having any shoes on and running around and having the liberty and the freedom to just kind of do whatever we want and be whatever we want, to moving to Europe where things are a lot more constrained, and you know, you have to fit into a certain box and you have to be a certain way, and you're also limited by, I mean, I guess by the weather and about yeah, and the language barrier initially.
Yeah.
But I went back to South Africa to study. I went back to South Africa for culinary school. I didn't want to do it in Paris just because I wanted to. No, I mean, I wanted to be able to have the freedom to experiment with flavor. And if you
Right.
and there's nothing wrong with any of the culinary schools in France. You know, you have Bocuse, you have Ferrandi, you have all of these great names, but I don't think it was going to give me the liberty that I needed to explore my own culture again.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't mind, what year is this in France? Because obviously, there's a very, like you said, sort of a very set way in which French culinary schools are ran. So, was this more, 2016 where we're starting to see a little bit of a change? Not really, or was this still very set in that, old system of this is how you're going to do it, and this is the way you learn, and this is the way we cook this dish?
This was like 2008, 2010, so
Okay.
it was pretty early on. Yeah, you're definitely seeing a change.
Right.
But while I was working in Paris, even up to like a few years ago, like the kids are so regimented. They,
Right. Right.
you cook a coq au vin, your coq au vin has to be perfect. Like
Right.
there's deviating from the recipe, and I do remember like just jumping ahead a
Deviate
little.
from the recipe.
Yeah,
What is a perfect coq au vin? Is it the specific wine or just like, the braising technique? Because to me, a coq au vin is just, mirepoix, deglazed with red wine, a older chicken, stewed, and then
correct.
is that not what? Or
I think
is
you'd
there
get
a,
chewed up in the culinary school, Vlad. I think
how,
they'd kill. They'd be like, "All
should
right,
I
get this
not?
joker out of here."
But I didn't do it. I was just like, I can't do this. I can't like abide by a specific way of cutting. You know, your mirepoix has to be cut to X amount of like, you know, what do you guys use? I mean, I use centimeters, but like X amount of inches, or just like, yeah, and like things have to
Yeah.
go at a certain moment in time. And I really struggled with that because I never learned to cook that way. And for me, it's like this has always been a project of passion. And I've never, and being in situations, I think, where I've been told to be a certain way or act a certain way and do things a certain way has really stifled me, and has never been, for me in any case, never been a good vessel for creativity or just like putting out good food. But again, that's just me. Some people need
Yeah.
that. Some people need structure.
Right.
Yeah.
How
No, I
was
love that.
I'm super interested. How was the experience of going, to South Africa for culinary school? And it
Yeah.
like, did it really give you that freedom that you were, kind of searching for and wishing to be had?
Well, I mean, if I start by saying that there was a brewery on premises, I mean, that gives you a pretty good
That's pretty awesome.
There
yeah.
you go.
No, I mean, honestly, it was great. I think a lot of it's just coming back to a space in which I knew and understood, and realizing that the 10 years that I had been away, living in France, there were little parts of me that had been missing, or things that I didn't understand. But now I think re engaging with, I guess, my people made me feel a little bit more comfortable in the way I function and the way I thought about things. And we also, so the chef school, the culinary school I went to was called the Valley of a Thousand Hills Chef School, actually. And it was on the top of this beautiful hill overlooking, again, the Valley of a Thousand Hills. And we lived and breathed food every single day. Everyone put on like 20 pounds while you're there, because you just eat everything you make. You cook every single day. You would rotate. It worked really well because it was very hands-on and very intense, and you worked 6 days a week. And you had two different restaurants on premises. So for me, and it gave you the liberty. So like our final exams was, here is a mystery basket, and do what you wish with it. And you had 24 hours to come up with three dishes, a starter, and like an entree and a dessert. And yeah,
And
I think
prior to going to culinary school, what was and kind of evaluate yourself, but what was your culinary skill set? Did you already were you already dabbling, kind of always cooking at home, going to farmers markets and stuff like that, or was this like all new to you, first time experience, like most of the ingredients and techniques and stuff like that?
I like everything was really new. I think honestly, like the only culinary experience I had, so leading up to that when I was at college, was the fact that we had no money because we spent all of our money on booze. Was my roommate and I going and just finding whatever we could at the supermarket that was cheap enough. And we both worked in hospitality, so we did like catering gigs as like waiters, and I worked in a bar for a bit, So the weird thing was is that as much as the culinary side of things was very new to me, the whole hospitality front of house was not. And it was again something I just fell into because I needed the extra money and it was just a way for me to survive. And I like the camaraderie and I like the late nights, and it never bothered me. I found that I had a lot more in common with these people because everyone was just really different. There was some sketchy guys. There was just some weird. You always find the weirdos, and I love that.
I
Uh,
I love that you hint on that because I often have said in podcast previous that the kitchen is a band of misfits, that we're all sort of longing for something or missing something, or there's some sort of draw that we all have. It's like magnetic, and I think for every single person it's different. But it all is that sort of just outsiders banding together, which is a really cool idea, especially when you think about sort of the conditions that we all work in. You have people from various backgrounds, all just coming together for one common goal in a very hot and sweaty environment.
yeah, totally. I mean, I'm definitely gonna like touch on it later when we're talking about like the here and now, but that was very much the case, and I didn't realize how much it attracted me and it just fit. So, but yeah, basically, that was college, and I was studying to be a teacher. So I was studying English lit and education as like a double major, and I went over to Southeast Asia because my dad was living in Thailand with my stepmom at that point, and um, I was going to teach. And I just started cooking because I was bored. I had no friends. I thought this would be a really cool way to just start meeting people. Turns out, basically, people that are 60 years plus and white and old, these like hotel cooking trips. But like in doing so, it really gave me a like an idea of what what things tasted like. I guess like the umami that you find in Southeast Asia, the chili, the sweet, the vinegars, the just the pungency of like Southeast Asian food is so different to anything that like previously experienced. It really blew my mind, and I wanted to learn how to do it. And so I spent all my weekends when I wasn't teaching, just cooking. And I was lucky enough to meet a bunch of really like, awesome people who kind of fueled this passion while I was there. And I called my mom. My parents are divorced, but I called my mom while I was with my dad, and I was like, I want to go to culinary school, and I'm going back to South Africa. And my parents were just completely, they were floored. They had no idea. They were like, I mean, why would you do that? You just paid a ton of money to go to college. You're a teacher. You get like vacation. You get like good pay. Like you're good.
Summers off,
Yeah,
yeah.
like they tick the box. Like the oldest daughter, done. All right, she's good now, and now I want to go back to culinary school and work in hospitality. And they just thought it was a terrible idea. Um, but it was what it was, and they were also just like, "Well, come back to Paris." I said, "No, I don't want to." They were like, "But going to South Africa to learn how to cook is like going to learn fashion like in Congo." And I was like, "Don't care. I'm going anyway." I was like, "You don't have to pay for anything. I'm gonna do it myself." And I said, and mark my words, when I'm done here, I want to be the best. And I haven't got there, but I hope that I'm on my way to something good.
Well,
Um,
I would say with the food and the cuisine that I've seen on your Instagram, let alone actually trying it myself, I definitely would say you're on your way to something for sure. Quite delicious, chef.
Appreciate it. You guys should come and hang out in San Francisco. It's a interesting place to be.
Yeah, my sister actually just graduated from the Navy and is stationed in San Diego, and me and Vlad are slowly building this roadmap of our guest chefs, and so one of these days we are going to rent one of those like RVamerica.coms. We're gonna we're gonna hop in an RV, and me and Vlad are gonna take a little trip.
Take the pod
I
on the road.
love those things.
Uh, No, but that's that's really interesting, and we appreciate you, sharing that with us, Chef, because I think that a lot of people sort of have this stigma that, they have to go to the best schools or they have to be in very specific places to sort of grow their culinary careers, being in a place like New York, Chicago, even parts of LA, while those are very beneficial, I think that, you
Paris.
know, yeah, or Paris. Yeah, exactly.
Right. It's like
Um,
the
yeah,
ultimate goal for any, I've always
yeah,
wanted to go, everybody wants to go and stage at like, those 10 pinnacle, places like Alan, Ducasse, the RPGA, all those spots that, we've seen
yeah.
Anthony Bourdain eat at on his travels. Like, yeah, I want to stage there.
I get it. I don't like it.
But but the point being is that, wherever you're at in the world, there's an ability to learn. There's an ability to push yourself, and that there's an ability to sort of, find something beautiful wherever you're at now. And so I think sometimes we often held ourselves up on thinking, oh, well, if I was here, then I could achieve this, or if I went to this place, then I could achieve this. And I think really being able to sort of look within. I mean, you looked and said, this is what I want to do. I found South Africa. I'm comfortable here. I know, this path that I'm on, and I'm going to do it. And so I just really appreciate you being able to share that with our followers, because I think a lot of people are probably in, similar situations to that.
I think, yeah, I mean, thank you for saying that. But I definitely see that now, like especially in San Francisco, with with COVID, San Francisco we all know is super expensive to live here. The wages are not great when you work in the back of house, and I think that when COVID hit, there was this giant exodus. Whether definitely tech companies left, but hospitality as well. Everything shut down, and everyone was like, well, why am I paying X amount for my apartment when I'm not making any money and I could just go back to like the Midwest, or I could go back to Florida, or I could go back to Texas, like where their family are from. When you're in, when times are dire, you go back to what you know, which is home. And I've done that on so many occasions throughout my life where I'm just like, well, this is the end of this chapter, so I'm gonna go and hunker down with my parents for like 3 months, and I might be 30, but you do what you got to do. Um,
Right.
and I think that's definitely something that we've seen of late is this giant exodus, and that is kind of giving place to people from other states who view California or view San Francisco as a mecca for food, and they want to come over and they want to try it out because the rent has dropped too. So in the last few months, and they're like, cool, I can finally afford to live here, and I can finally, hopefully there'll be an opening for me because we have a huge drought of like for employment here. It's crazy. Like coming from like from my perspective as a CDC, trying to find hands, just hands at this point to reopen because California and San Francisco reopened so quickly. Like they were like, okay, well you guys can open next week. Okay, well now you can open for indoor dining. Okay, now you guys can open for 50%. We're like, shit, like we don't have enough people in house to make this happen. And in order to deliver a certain expectation and level of food, you need to have the right amount of people front and back of house. And I'm starting just to see um, these kids, I guess, and these people coming in and being like, can I work for you? And it's great because they're finally getting that chance. They've finally been given an opportunity to move away from, I guess, what they know into something where they feel like they can be propelled into the Michelin world, and it is what it is. And as much as I've always worked in the Michelin environment, I also came from like one of those schools that nobody knows, and that's totally fine. And from a place where I have no experience, and they look at my resume initially and they're like, well, somebody has to give you a chance. So
Yeah.
we kind of just go from there.
It's a
Yeah.
big commitment on both parts, right? Because it's a big commitment, hiring somebody new, but it's also a big commitment to the leader, right? Is you're getting a blank, you know, you gotta input a lot of hours to train that person up coming off without that resume. But I think you couldn't have said it any better that every Michelin restaurant, at least in the United States, from what I'm hearing, is struggling to do this reopen back up, right? Because the past year it's been slowing down, monetizing, trying to you know um, have the least amount of cash burn as possible and kind of survive through this time. And now it's like go 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 go, and it's like whoa, like what is okay? Are we still doing to go? Are we not doing to go? Are we doing both? Do we have enough people? The people are gone. People have moved on. I mean, your old CDC or sous chef or your best dishwasher who always came in went to work construction or went to do something else and moved back to Texas, found another opportunity. I mean, it's been a year, right? And people move on. And
They came to Florida. They're all here on the
I know.
Tampa coast.
well, lucky you then.
No,
I
I mean, yeah,
know.
we're feeling the same thing over here in Florida. I'm in the process of opening up this new hotel, and I've had 4 positions posted for the last 7 days, and I've had 4 applicants across all 4 positions. So it's definitely a trying time to get our staff back in restaurants, and I can only imagine, like I said jokingly, but Florida has kind of been open this entire time. So we've slowly started getting people back in the state, but
Yeah.
like you said, there's other states out there that it's just like very abruptly like, okay, now you can start making money, figure it out. And that takes time and that takes people, just like you said. And unfortunately, we're a little short on the people aspect in a very people driven industry. So
It is. But you know what? I definitely have seen a lot of good come from this. And I think it has to do with, again, the opportunity for people coming from out of state to be like, this is my time to shine. Like, I can do this. Because I've had probably about 20 people come through in the last month for stages because we had a full 3 positions. Again, like right off the bat, like we use Culinary Agents, we use a bunch of other places, and
Shout out to Culinary Agent. I've
yeah, right.
literally secured every awesome job I've had in this industry through Culinary Agent.
It works. What can I say? Yeah, better than Craigslist because you get some. Yeah. Anyway.
Yes, 100%.
I'm gonna hire some Craigslist cooks and see what I
It's
get.
more specific. I think the people that are searching for it, especially like you're saying, the newcomers, they're definitely going to use a tool like Culinary Agent because you right away cut out the hotels, those super anybody can do it type of job, salad bar mentality, to like something where it's like, okay, these people want to take it seriously and want to grow to the next level. I think those are the people that Culinary Agent attracts, at least from what I've seen, especially, when I later on in my career or whatever we are in timeline. But, as a sous chef hiring people, Culinary Agent like would always come through with good leads.
Yeah, yeah, completely. And I think as well, like as you said, all the newcomers are they're getting on there because it's more legit. And I think straight off the bat, and I'm going to say this to whoever's listening, like a cover letter is great. Like being able to state your purpose is really something that is it'll just like set you above the rest, and having like a resume that works. And I remember my dad telling me this like way back in the day, like this first encounter counts. So yeah, it's been it's definitely been an interesting process, and I think that I've had a lot of people that I've come across um, from out of state, and they've been really motivated, and they've been probably more of, how do I say this? They've just been more motivated because San Francisco, again, you've had the same group of people, you've had the same guys that have sort of been across the board, and now you're getting to the point where everyone has just decided that they've done this, they're ready to roll, and they leave. And so now you have all of these new kids, and it's great. It's really, really great because they're motivated, and you do, like you said, you have to start it on a clean slate, but they want it.
Which is
And
sometimes an awesome opportunity when we have two Dougs now.
we do.
All right, we're back. But I think, at my time at Royster, when you have a clean slate, you're able to really, avoid all those bad habits right off the bat too. So, but it takes time, right? Once you get a crew going, and that's the thing about a well-oiled restaurant, or you really need people to come in every day and be consistent, and then you can start tweaking them to perfection and get it to that right place. And I think it's a great time for anybody who's been hungry and couldn't get pre-COVID, every Michelin restaurant was packed. There wasn't there wasn't that many opening positions. Every line cook was fighting to be the next sous chef and just trying to get his time in, and just waiting for that sous chef to leave. But that sous chef's not going anywhere because nobody's really moving. Everybody was really comfortable in their spots, more say. Very little movement in that. And now it's like everybody's hiring, right? There's memes on the internet that I've seen where it's like, the restaurant industry is burning, but then every chef is like, hey, I'm hiring. And it's kind of like these two mentalities that we've had, I think, in the past year. How was it on the California side in terms of like starting COVID, getting through it, going through summer, winter, and then like where we're at now with it in terms of, how did you regulate your staff? Were you doing to-goes? Were you able to do, what was patio season? What was innovative in terms of how you guys did patio season there? Because you have, great weather, not great weather. I'm, not too familiar. If you could let me know and all our viewers tuning in about all that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, honestly, again, it's just been like pivot after pivot after pivot, and that's been the same, I think, for a lot of people across the board. And as I said to you prior to the recording, this is my first CDC position. So I walked into this because I needed a new job, and I was coming off a visa, like an O1 visa, and with COVID, we were all let go, and I needed a new job in order to stay. A friend of the pastry chef at Sorrel, I knew him from Atelier Cran, and he was like, "Hey, we're looking for a new CDC. Are you interested?" And that, in my mind, I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for this. Like, I don't think I can do this. But everyone said, go for it. What's the worst that could happen? And this was, I guess, April 2020, and I was like, I guess I've got nothing to lose. The only thing I have to lose is a visa, so I better get on it. So yeah, I did my tasting with Sorrel, and it went really well. And again, like, fake it until you make it. And I guess it happened, and I learned everything.
Well, I think you've paid your dues, right? I mean, prior to that, you've been in that environment. You've been exposed to the culture.
Definitely. No, there's definitely been the exposure and like the information that I needed, but it's a question of, it's weird how you can, information just infiltrates your brain, whether you realize it or not. And then when you need it, things just pop up and you go, I've been in this situation before. Okay, how do we deal with this? Did it work well? Did it not work well? Like, at the end of the day, you're constantly going to be taking in a lot of information, and whether it's, and you see the good, the bad, and the ugly throughout industry every single time you change job, every single restaurant that you work in. And it's just a question of processing that information and figuring out how you want to use it, figuring out whether you want to use the bad for the good, and then how to use the good in the situation that you're in. And that's really been the case for this. And then on top of that, we've had COVID. So it's me coming into a restaurant and it being closed down for 4 months, and everybody is in like a really bad headspace. And I didn't know these people, letting them know that I was available, that I was somebody that communicates with people, that letting people know that I was ready to listen to their needs, and basically moving away from what was there before into something completely new. Because I think a lot of staff had left, or a lot of staff quit when when you have a CDC change, a lot of things change because
Yeah, that's a pretty, pretty big change in terms of,
Yeah, shout out to all the CDCs out there because I'm in my second CDC job and it's definitely a very interesting position to be in. You're a little bit better than a sous chef, but you're not quite the executive chef. So navigating those waters are not always easy.
well, you're chef de cuisine, right?
Right.
you need to keep the boss happy, and you've got to keep everybody else happy but in check, and they need to trust you. And I think that's a really big thing, is that you need to create a community, you need to create trust, and you need to have, in my case, I feel like you need to have open communication. And that's never really been, for me, that's something that I've always done, for better or for worse. Again, people are more or less receptive to communication. And especially in our industry, you have a lot of chefs who actually thrive off of this really intense environment, and being put down. And I've worked in French kitchens. I've worked in enough Parisian kitchens to know that you have one or the other, people that thrive off aggression and off stress.
Is there any like horrible experience that you've experienced, in a Parisian kitchen that made you almost like be like, wow, I don't want to be in this position ever again.
So many of them. I've seen grown men cry, like men who are fathers, who are like CDCs, who are executive chefs. I've seen them cry before. I can't tell you who and what, because that's not okay, but it has definitely happened. I've seen chef owners walk in 3 Michelin star restaurants in Paris and just up and whole trays of food because something was off. It's
Goodness.
it's nuts. I mean, my first job, and I mean, I love the guy. My first job was in a 2 Michelin star restaurant. So I went from a little South African culinary school, but I somehow like poked my way into a 2 Michelin River Chateau in the Loire Valley. But um, yeah, I remember him coming up to me on a Sunday, and we had worked like 80 hours. And it was just me and my sous chef on Garde Manger. And again, I was maybe like 3 months into my first ever culinary job, and we're behind, and he's not happy, and everyone's tired, everyone's at their wits end, and he comes up behind us and he whispers, "If I lose a Michelin star because of you, you'll never be hired again." And and we both burst into tears. We systematically just burst into tears, and then we did that rotation of going into the walk and then crying and then coming out and then going back and crying. It was one of those. But yeah,
No, that couldn't have been more real and awesome
Yeah.
to hear, because it's so true. And I bet it still happens to this day, because I mean, back in my my fair share of Michelin spots, I've heard the craziest thing behind my ear. And it's sometimes coming from the top, sometimes coming from the guy that just brought too much ego that day. But it definitely exists there, because the level of hunger is so high, right? The amount that's on the plate and the responsibility, that's put on you. Like, right, if you can't catch up and we lose a star, it's on you. That's a lot of responsibility, especially as a person that's not comfortable or confident yet to like take that on, right? When it comes at you at the first time, it's a lot.
I mean, that's pressure on top of pressure on top of pressure on top of 80 hours worked, and not knowing what the hell is going on for the first 3 weeks that you're there. It's just like the acclimatization period in a restaurant when you walk in there for a first time, regardless of how seasoned you are. Like that first week is shit, because you have no idea what's going on. And I think as a chef, as a seasoned chef, you're used to being in control and understanding and seeing. And as much as you're seeing and sort of and realizing, you're being able to sort of decipher how things work, not being able to do your job at the capacity that you can do your job is very frustrating. So being brand new and green and walking into a restaurant, like, this is why I have a lot of compassion for people. I have a lot of compassion for the people that come and work for me, that work as my sous chefs, people just in general who tell me their stories. Like, because we've all been there. We've all been in shitty situations. We've all been there with people who who you just don't connect with, who systematically bully you because, why not? It's easy. And it's not a place that I ever want to experience again, and it's not a space in which I want anybody else to experience again. And this is why Sorrel has been so awesome, because I've been able to take charge and I've been able to use this first position as the CDC to really sort of instill that culture of community and reflection um, and just positivity. When you come in, you don't just spend this much time with people because it's your job. You spend this much time with people because it's something that you love to do. So why go through hell and back in a space that you love, doing what you love, when things just could be so much easier? When you could actually just you could express what you do in a more positive manner. So yeah, that's kind of where
No,
I'm
I,
at.
I love that you brought that up. Last week we had Chef Rafa from Vets here in Chicago came on, and he's like, he said it really, really cool. He's like taking the transaction from the interaction, right? And that's like his love for, the front of the house. Like, he wants to create an environment where people come and chill, but it's like also so important in terms of like how he treats, and how you develop the culture within your restaurant really speaks, to the chef and the establishment and all the people involved, because it really does become a family, and a very tight family that, has each other's backs and wants everybody to see them succeed, and, all the good stuff, and like making sure that anything negative kind of stays out of the, out of the restaurant. And when you're here, you could give it your all, be creative, be free, and, feel comfortable, but still be able to push yourself and push the boundaries of what you're doing.
And I think that's very much the case. I think at this point, I really hope that moving forward now, especially like when you look at San Francisco, a lot of the CDCs or a lot of the sous chefs have kind of done, everyone's left and started doing their own things. I know that I have a lot of friends who are on management level that have just said, well, I'm not going to go back. I'm going to open my own business. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to make bread. And you've seen some really cool creative ideas and pop ups, like especially in Oakland, that are just rife and amazing and full of talent, and just people just love what they do. And this may not have been possible if COVID hadn't happened, because when you get into a job, you're kind of just stuck in that space. When you work for somebody else, and it's just like you go and you go and you go, and it's great because you feel like you're learning and you have your coworkers, and in an ideal world, they help you build that creation. They help you create, and they build that potential. But when you're projected into a new space where you have to just be yourself, you get to do that. And I think there's some really beautiful things that have happened since. And for those who have decided to move into their own space and open their own restaurants, I really, really hope that we've learned from the traditional way of thinking, and we're moving away from that. And we're moving into something that's healthier. We're moving into a creative space where everybody has a say. And at the end of the day, it's not about people pushing you. If you really want it, you need to push yourself. Like, it's about taking command of the way you view your job, about the way that you interact with the people that you have at your fingertips, so the rest of your crew, and using that to move forward and to just, yeah, really just build something good.
I love that. And, recently, maybe about 2 months ago now, we actually had a chef on that worked at TFL, Joshua Tango, and he kind of talked about that exact thing. He broke off and started doing his own pasta out of Oakland, actually, and is like killing the game. I know, Vlad was on that interview with him, and just sort of, him speaking on his behalf of like, I really love food and I really loved what I was doing. And, this is what I grew out of a bad situation. And, that definitely didn't fall in his lap. The fresh pasta that he makes didn't just happen. He had to put a lot of work in marketing himself and putting himself out there to sort of pivot during these difficult times. And I think, we as chefs kind of have that self-starter in us, to varying degrees between chefs, but us able to activate
Well,
that.
we're good to pivot, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, we're all manual, and we're all, yeah. I think we
Hey,
have.
hey, chef, I forgot to order the romaine. Oh, well, I guess we gotta, pivot. And that happens a lot, especially on a Sunday brunch where it's like, yo,
Yeah.
Yeah.
why did we not order 3 cases of eggs,
It was 11:30 last night, chef, and I meant to put it on the order, but
Yes.
I just yeah,
And then
just
you stand there as a manager, and you're just like, I'm gonna fucking kill you. And you just
yeah,
smile, and you're like, we'll make it work. And then you just walk away.
exactly. We'll make it work. I love that. I
I
love
think,
that.
I think that's just, yeah, I think that's kind of how you have to roll. And again, you're gonna have so many different people from so many different backgrounds that come through, and that's definitely something I've realized is like it's not about education, it's about how you can deal with situations and your outlook and how much you want something.
Well, you heard it here, guys. If nobody gets anything from this, that's such a key, important, what Chef just said. It's not about the education, it's about your outlook of the situation, what you're willing to put forth. Are you going to turn this into a positive situation, or are you going to let those, negative feelings sort of take over your day and rule you from there?
Yeah.
And just to add to the end, like what we were talking earlier is the first 2 weeks are gonna be shit for everybody. No matter how experienced you are, you don't know where the cryovac is. You forgot, the last layout of the restaurant was different. The pots and pan the chef doesn't want this here. There's things that the territory needs to
You guys
be,
don't have delis here? Are you kidding
yeah,
me?
yeah.
There's no delis here?
And learning, what are people's pet peeves, what are people's strong suits, that all takes time. And I think you got to throw yourself in there. And some of the situations going in might not, every learning curve you have is amazing because you learned it, right? And then you get your station set, you know how everything works, and then you work within those boundaries to break them, right? But I just want all those young culinarians and people who didn't go to culinary school that want to get in this game is know that right now is your time, because restaurants need you.
We do. Plug St. Pete Beach. Hit us up.
But before we kind of get to where you're at now, what you're doing at Sorrel, talk us through. I've never been to San Francisco. What is the food scene like? And also, if we can go a little bit back, what's the food scene like in South Africa? Are there, I know there's, well-established chefs. There's obviously, high-end fine dining happening. Were you going out in that scene? Did you meet these chefs? Were you inspired by them? And if we can also even go a little bit more back to a question I had earlier, who are your mentors that kind of helped you instill and make, shape you as a chef that you are now?
In South Africa, again, I studied in Durban. It's very small. I think the only real interaction we have with another chef is when my team won the sushi competition at culinary school, and we got to go and eat in his restaurant because he was a judge. Again, like super proud at that time, and so not like there's a lot more happening now, but again, it's still very original, and it still very much remains within South Africa. I think there's one South African chef that has a restaurant in Nice, in France. He's probably the only one at this point that has actually breached the barriers of like international sort of renown. Um, but for me, South Africa is not about like I guess chefs of a certain standard. It's just for me, it's about flavor, it's about culture, it's about upbringing and what you would need to bring to the table in order to be a good person. I think being grounded is something that I learned as well in South Africa. People are very chill there. They don't really care where you come from, who you are. It's about again, that's what we can bring to the table. That's important, and um, and the morality that comes with that. And that's just the way I've been brought up. I think France has definitely been the place that's shaped the space, the culinary space in which I've grown. And again, like you have the good, the bad, and the ugly. I've had some chefs who my first chef that I told you about, who was the one that whispered in our ear, like, if we lose a star, it's your fault. But in time, you and I became friends. Like, we were invited back with my sous chef, and we realized that it was just a guy that was intensely highly strung, and he's also a man who leads by example, because he was there at 8:30 every morning, and he left at midnight, and he had 2 Michelin stars for 26 years. And that is something
Jesus.
that, yeah, and that is something that I, in hindsight, have a lot of respect for.
Yeah,
So
no, definitely. That's,
balance, like, I guess, there's some days when I walk in and I'm just like, I'm frustrated and I'm annoyed, but I don't think I'll ever get to that point where I will be vindictive in that sense. But I understand the elevated frustration, and from a mental perspective, I think that is something that I really wanted, but I never had. Yeah, I've always wanted to find that person, and which is why I think that I want to be somebody who can mentor others, because it was something that I severely lacked, especially as a woman in the industry. And I have this small project up my sleeve right now that I'm kind of working on. It's mainly a giant post-it in my kitchen where I just write a bunch of stuff on. Um, but I think I want to build a platform for female chefs that basically and we can create mentorship programs. It's a lot more than that, but it's a place in which people feel comfortable, where you can create mentorship programs, where you can basically reach out within the industry and ask for advice, see where you can find funding, see where, for women that are looking to start a business. I know that it's always a little bit harder. Um, yeah, there's a lot to do still for the women in our industry, and I would like to be a part of starting something new.
Yeah, that's
go
was
for it,
just
go for it, Doug. I'm gonna sit back for a little bit.
no, you're good. I was just gonna say, we did have Chef Hannah on, Hannah Souley, who kind of talked to us a little bit, about her struggles as a woman in the industry, and she actually ended up writing a book sort of about her early kitchen life as a woman in the industry, and it was actually, I think she titled it "Nice Work Boys," and then in parentheses girls, because you hear that all the time, good job on the line tonight, guys. And so it was really interesting, hearing her perspective. Obviously, me and Vlad are, two males in this industry. But
In
we
this
also
podcast too. I mean,
right.
I can't tell
Yeah.
you how many women chef we want on the pod, but it's for some whatever reason it's much harder to get, the female chefs. And I've worked with some badass woman chefs that I was like, damn, like I gotta, damn, So I want people who are hungry. Doesn't matter, your gender, your ethnicity, whatever it is.
Yeah.
We want to get everybody's story, but for whatever reason, it's been a little bit harder to get the female chefs on here. So to all our female viewers, chefs tuning in, hit us up because
Definitely.
we need you.
Definitely, it's definitely a drought. And my sous chef, she told me the story the other day, and it struck me, and it made me laugh so much, because I don't see myself as scary. But apparently, when you meet me in the kitchen, I'm very, very scary, which whatever. Um, but
Well, in that environment, isn't your CDC is gonna be scary? I would hope so.
It's
I
part of
don't
the
think
job description. Must be
yeah,
scary.
I don't take myself seriously, I guess, to a certain extent. But the one so back last year, I decided that it would be a great idea to invest in whole lambs and use all of the lamb in order for us to just, like, I thought it would be more like, from a monetary value situation, like a lot better, to bring in the whole guy and just break it down. So Tanya, my sous chef, her first day of work, I also own a smart car. I pull out two 50-pound lambs out of my smart car, and I stagger with them to the front door of the restaurant, and I show her how to open the restaurant door, and I stagger through and throw it on the pasta board. she was like, "Do you know how scary and intimidated I was by you?" She was like, "You just staggered out of your smart car with these giant lambs," and I was like, "I don't even remember that."
And
I was like,
you
"But
you
yeah,
mean business if you're
it's
stepping
scary."
out with two whole lambs coming out.
Coming out of a smart
That
car, yeah, you're not playing games.
I would be
Welcome
like,
to
yeah,
Sorrel.
I'm gonna try not to
Welcome.
fuck up today.
All right, I'm glad I was early. Thank God I wasn't late to this job. Holy cow. Yeah.
But yeah, I just again, it's just one of those things where I think that I don't know, do women not have a voice in the industry, or are women too? Are we too scared to
No,
hold a space?
I think
You
that,
know?
well, at least, from outside looking in, I think that you guys have, a giant voice and probably a much better perspective on the actual inner workings because, you guys are amazing listeners. I think women are incredible listeners, but I think that sometimes we think that we're being inclusive, but we're really not. And I think
Mm.
that having that open communication, sort of like we were talking about earlier in that open invitation, is important to not to isolate anybody, but sort of to, make it known that, hey, we know that, you guys are out there and we want to hear, what's going on and sort of that perspective. But I think sometimes it does feel sort of maybe like undervalued in a sense.
Yeah. I've definitely had managers, including Tanya, who came on as my sous chef, and she's worked in some really big names, and we just promoted one of my line cooks to a sous chef. The guy is amazing. I adore him. I adore every single person that I've hired in this kitchen. For me, they're family, and every single one of them is an asset, and every single one of them brings something beautiful to the space in which we work. But she was just like, "Chef, just promise me one thing," because we reached out to him. We said, are you okay with this? We want to make sure that you are okay with this decision before we bring somebody else in. We don't want you to feel like somebody is stepping on your stepping on your head. And she was like, "Just promise me one thing. Just promise me equal pay, and promise me that he's not going to just automatically. I'm not going to be pushed to the sidelines." And I said, "I would never, ever, ever do that to you." But that is it. But it's a genuine concern. It's a
Right. The
genuine
fact that,
concern.
that she even had to ask that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it really, really got me thinking, which is why I've also just started reaching out to a lot of women in our industry, whether it's the beverage side of things, whether it's just the operation side of things. And I've met some incredibly wonderful, strong women, in this process, especially in San Francisco. And I've started reaching out to smaller communities. Oakland is really good at this. It's like really building communities, where I feel like in San Francisco, we're very detached from each other. We all work and strive towards the same thing, but we're very much in our own zone, and we build on what we have for each of our restaurants, but there's no real talk. And I think that during COVID, it was great because we had the Bay Area Hospitality Group Coalition, and we had the California Hospitality Coalition. But that was because it was dire straits. That was because we all needed to come together and we needed to build something in order to survive. And we needed to advocate for our needs when they had, you know, closed all the restaurants down. But that kind of dissipated once we were all able to open again. And I feel like everyone just kind of forgot. And which is why, again, like this whole idea of pushing towards a community, having an open conversation. We're not like, I feel like we need to move away from fighting against each other and being like, well, I can do this and this is what I'm doing, but I do it better than you. And it was the same in Paris. It's like there's just this constant need to like up each other. I mean, I guess that's the nature of like the business, but at the same time, I feel like we all do the same thing every single day. We all work towards the same thing. We all strive for the same thing. So why can't we have an honest conversation? Why can't we build something together? Like our oven has been down for a week. Like I can't find a single person to come and repair the oven for me. Um, but being able to have open communication, being able to find, I guess, like a website or whether it's just information in order for us to find somebody that is dependable to come in and help us, and or to be able to bake our bread somewhere else. It's small things where I'm like, this is
It's like
really,
having a
really
good
small
credible
thing.
source, right?
Yeah,
Because now
but
with
we
the internet there's
every day.
too much information, and to filter through all it is also ridiculous, and a lot of it eats up your time. And
Yeah.
as a CDC, you don't have that much time, especially, there is no clocking out as a CDC. There's just triple checking on triple checking on triple checking, making sure, all your bases are covered, because that restaurant opens, is going to feed people tomorrow. When it's shut down, there are things that need to be happened. Things need to be logged and ordered for the next day. I mean, it's a 24/7 type of job that you kind of you worry about, right? Making sure, because there's a lot on the line still, and especially at this point where there I feel like this year a lot of restaurants haven't been able to do what they've been doing for their community. I know Boca has been incredible with keeping everybody's insurance and making sure everybody's paid and health taken care of. What I see here in Chicago, because that's local to me. What about San Francisco? How was that for you and other people and your network in terms of COVID and restaurant groups and all of that kind of taking care of their people? Or was it, every man for themselves, every woman for themselves?
I think, again, like, I think we saw a lot of rally within the community, which has been great. Um, a lot of it had to do with, I think, just like from a financial perspective, like, what do we do now? Like, what do we do now that we can only do delivery? How do we pivot? How do we like continue to make money? And then it took months for the government to really be able to just to give it, to build this idea of a PPP, and for us to reopen again. Again, it's so different depending on the states. But San Francisco was very difficult. We had just on our side, I think we've had to change our concept probably about 4 or 5 times in the last year. And that's just like, we played on the Italian deli type of thing, where we did tapas and we did things to go. Then we did like actual takeout with like caviar and all of these delivery places. We were able to open for a second, then we opened indoor for a second, then we did tasting menus, where Sorrel was very much known to be like an a la carte. It was a Michelin star restaurant, but it was very neighborhoody. So people like to come just for like a really good glass of wine and then some pasta. And now we've gone full blown tasting menu, and there's no a la carte options. And it was definitely a gamble, because I think those of us in the industry understand that working with a tasting menu from a food cost standpoint is a lot more. It just makes a lot more sense, because you can control your costs, you can control how much food is coming in, and you know that you're always going to sell it. It also means that the way that you your labor as well, you know that you need X amount of people for X amount of hours for that to happen. It gets rid of all all the extra
The variables.
Right.
Yeah.
Instead of having, the 3 choices of each thing, you kind of are just like, hey, let's give them the best of what we think, what we like. And, it is a big throw thing. And I think Boca's been doing the same thing here in Chicago. They're, one of the big guys. They went from, like a chicken shop that they're like opening up as like a real concept now. But they also were always known for like being an a la carte neighborhood spot. And I think they are doing tasting menu now, because it does make more sense, and you have a little bit more control. And that's what, restaurants need right now, is to have a little bit more control and hey, when everybody's busy, when everybody's packed, you have to be a little bit more lenient. You could eat a little bit more food costs. You could, have better family meals if, things don't sell and stuff like that. Now it's like, we got to really watch it. I don't know about PB&J, but
PB&J for family meal.
at least Coco Van.
I would be,
Coco Van for family meal. Oh God.
I mean, I don't know if I can afford that much chicken right now. But yeah, I've definitely been that person that stalks around the walk-in and the dry storage and just being like, use what we have. Like, come on, guys. Like, oh, why do we need protein for family meal 5 times a week? Like, I had to be that person, and I hated it. I really, really did. And but it was a sign of the times, and it was also a question of like, how do we figure out in December when they closed us down again? We were just like, we can't keep doing this. We can't do a la carte with this many people and like with this many staff versus what the 40 covers that we were allowed to do. It didn't make sense. I was looking at my food costs and I was ripping my hair out. Whereas now we've moved into a tasting menu. Yes, I definitely understand that it's a gamble and that I feel like at the end of the day, there are going to be people that are going to be unhappy about the whole thing because they are used to having that neighborhood restaurant where they can come and have pasta, and now they have to pay X amount just to sit down and have dinner and a glass of wine. But this is where I also hope that the guests' mindsets are changing too, not just ours, but theirs, and being like, this is not a question of us just like stuffing some food down on a plate and sending it out. This is our livelihoods. This is what we do on a day to day. And there is a lot of investment, whether it's financial or just, and emotional, but also just hands and labor that comes, that needs to contribute to what you get, to this beautiful food that you receive when you sit down for dinner. And I think people are a lot more aware of that because they've also had to eat at home for a year. I mean, that's a big thing.
I definitely agree with that. And I think sometimes when we go out to eat, we don't really think of it as this artistic experience. But you know you could sort of relate going out to eat to going to having a night at the gala, or going to an art gallery, or going to watch and look very slowly and methodically and study these paintings. When you're having a dish from a tasting menu, like you said, that is the expression of the chef. That is the expression of their life's work. And so you are sitting down to enjoy something. You are sitting down to slowly investigate, slowly sort of experience whatever the chef is trying to purvey. It's not a bowl of cacio e pepe to just get you through the night. So I love that you guys are kind of able to pivot in that manner and provide a little bit of intimacy during this time when everything seems very unintimate, so to speak.
I think intimacy is a very, very good word. And also relates, like, we can't forget the front of house and what they do as well in order to create an experience for these people that come for dinner. And, despite them being at the front line, I guess, of, a lot of us, my entire staff are vaccinated now, but it was always that worry of being like, well, I guess, yeah, you guys have to deal with the guests. And how far do we go with regards to I guess, social distancing, because you still have to put the plate down and you still have to reset the table. And there was a lot of this where, I mean, some of my favorite restaurants in San Francisco who were all about, dining experience completely took away from them. They were like, we're still going to serve great food, but you're going to come and pick up your food and we're going to use disposable cutlery and we're going to use disposable plates. And whether or not that took away from the dining experience, I mean, I guess that just really depends on everyone's perspective. But it's all we decided we weren't going to do that. And we decided that we were going to still serve food with the plates that we have, and that we were going to make the dining experience like as good as it would have been despite the pandemic. And I think people appreciated that, and we definitely got a lot of positive feedback. But again, it's a conversation that you need to have with your front of house. It's a conversation to make sure that everybody feels comfortable, with the way that you engage with the guest. We still have a lot of anti-maskers that come in. A lot of people that just refuse to wear the mask, or you have to stand there like an idiot with plates of food getting cold. You're like, can you please put the mask on? And you just get some shady looks sometimes. But that's just the name of the game right now, and I guess that's just the 2% or the 1% that you have to deal with.
That's a great point that you brought up with hey, I'm vaccinated, I'm not gonna wear a mask. Yeah. People that are I've definitely these past 3 weeks, that's people. There's two people. The vaccinated still wear a mask, just to keep everybody quiet, and then the people like, oh no, I'm vaccinated, like we good, like, and there's no scientific backing any of that up, where whether you're vaccinated or not vaccinated, can you get it again, can you get a different variation nowadays, so it is it is definitely the front of the house. They earn those tips. They put up with a lot of things that a lot of the back of the house would just not put up with. I'd rather get yelled at by, you know, one person than, you know, having to do that whole, you know, front of the house things. And that's why there is that front of the house, back of the house. But the more we get, you know, as a unity, the more we become, we are symbiotic, but the more fluid we become between those transitions and understanding, and, you know, right, like you're saying, open up that line of communication from wherever side you are. I think the better the restaurant off, and the better the industry is. And I think kind of using our last podcast, Chef Rafa's words, but building a restaurant community, right? Like you're saying, you know, there's a lot of competition, especially, you know, in San Francisco, Chicago, all these big cities. But if we build it as a community and say like, hey, we're all in this together, we're all building here. Let's be more friendly. Let's worry about this competition less. Everybody can thrive, right? Everybody can be well off, and doing that, you raise, you know, the guest experience as well. And
you raise the guest experience, and you also raise the expectations, or like, I don't know, I feel like the basic necessity when you work within an environment where you see people 60 hours a day or 70 hours a day is like, for me, your own experience needs to be positive. You need to feel like you can walk into work and you're going to get, not only you're going to get shit done, but you're going to learn something, and you're going to learn in a positive environment, and you're going to you vibrate with these people that you see every single day. You need to be able to trust these people. And this is what I've tried to do in this kitchen as well. It's like, we have people from so many different walks of life, from so many different nationalities, and at the end of the day, it's all about being able to keep yourself in check, but also to be able to trust the person next to you, that they're going to be able to communicate effectively with you, and they're also going to help you out. Like, you're in the shits, damn dude, I'm not doing anything right now. Cool, what can I do for you? Like, for me, that is like the cornerstone of a kitchen. You don't just spend that much time with 10 other people in the kitchen and work selfishly. You can't do that. It's just not an effective way to work.
yeah, and I think right now for any, you know, people that are looking to learn, I think it's a great time because we're not doing 100% capacity. We're not, you know, doing 4 turns and 3 turns with, you know, you know, you're not getting slammed with, you know, 80 covers right away. You're really able to learn from the chefs that are, you know, in these restaurants, in these establishments, and then you get to do a little bit more than what you would be doing on a set station with, you know, 5 menu items that are not going to change for the next 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the major opportunity right now for everybody that's, you know, looking out to learn. And I think for every restaurant, being so flexible and just getting through COVID puts you in a, you know, what's gonna, if you got through that, you're, you know, I feel like you're good. Like, there's nothing else that can possibly happen.
Well, let's hope not. Knock on some wood, Vlad. Let's hope this.
Yeah, right.
But
I don't
like,
want to happen again.
you know, all these restaurants, you know, we lost a lot of great restaurants, especially, you know, in the California side, you know, seeing Restaurant Meadow burn down. I mean, like,
Yeah.
craziest, you know, year, but like it's over, right? I feel like it's over. I want it to be over. And we're on this new page where everybody who survived, everybody who got through the storm, everybody who pivoted and pivoted and pivoted and pivoted and kept strong is going to be, you know, for the next, you know, for the future is going to be set. So I'm super excited, you know, to have you on the pod, sharing your experiences, you know, from San Francisco, from California. I know, like, that's where I want to live, but it's insane. It's expensive, and it's, you know, it is what it is. The culture that you guys have there is amazing. I can't wait for me and Doug, you know, to make our road trip on our RV, take this podcast on the road, and do a couple really cool things with that. But as we kind of wrap this pod up, I kind of want to see, what are your favorite 3 cookbooks? What are those 3 cookbooks that, you'd recommend to any chef?
Hmm. I have I have 2 out of 3 right here because my wife and I collect cookbooks like it's nobody's business. That one, and I can
Jerusalem. Okay.
Jerusalem by Odlehi. All of his stuff is like amazing. It's spicy. It has a lot of flavor, and it's homey, but it works. Every single one of his recipes work, and it really annoys me when you have a cookbook and the recipes don't work, or it requires like X amount of hydrocolloids um, as well that are not, it's not always available to home
Right. Let
cooks.
me get the whole table of, minerals and
Whole
agars and
nutmeg.
agitateds and all of that.
What is the other one that I really like? This one is really good too, actually.
Jerusalem. I'm definitely buying that book right
Yeah,
now,
it's
like right after. I'm all about the Israeli. I actually lived in Israel.
Speaking
I
speaking
grew
Vlad's language.
I grew up in Israel, so like, and it's like again, like just like South Africa, it's a melting pot. You got Moroccan, you got Israeli, you got Bulgarian, you got Yemeni, you got Arabic, you got all the Eastern Europeans that migrated into that region. So like, it's really like everything's fair game. There's authenticity, but it's like in your household, right? Your mama
exactly.
makes it like that, it's authentic, but to the
But
general population, it's fair game, I think.
I think as well, it's all about, for me, and at least it's all about taste. It's about taste and like knowing where you're going with it, and whether it's traditional or authentic, or whether you want to break boundaries. That's great, but it needs to be flavorful. That's just yeah, that's kind of my thing. And then this one's really good because if you want to learn how to make bread, you really got to go and check out the Danes. They're yeah, they're pretty awesome.
Do you
So my
yourself have a starter that you keep alive around?
so I really suck at making bread, but I'm trying. And I generally kill my starter because I have a million things going on right now, including like my rooftop garden at work because I'm trying to plant like a full-on like miniature farm on our rooftop.
That was
Um,
Doug's goal last year, but he moved
Yeah,
on from that project.
yeah. I have another rooftop, so we'll see. We'll see.
yeah, well, this is it. I've acquired a little bit more help, so I'm hoping that that's gonna, that'll push things along. But like every day I'm up there, I'm like trying to install irrigation or I'm trying to plant stuff and like gonna run down and like check my, it's just, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's great and I really want to learn, but it's a lot of work. And I think my last one is Mirazur, so in the south of France. Mirazur is a 3 Michelin star restaurant, and what he's doing is gorgeous. He's really harnessing like the best of Italian and French produce, and it's very minimalist in the way he does things, and I like the way it replicates a lot of the California produce, especially between like June and September. So we're starting to see like a lot of alliums and a lot of berries come in, and
So since we're
maybe
on kind of seasonality, are ramps in season? Like and fair game for Doug too. Like I go here April, May, I'm looking for ramps everywhere, and I've had people come up to me like, "Hey, you can't forge this," and I'm like, "No, no, I'm a chef. Like we're good here. I'm not cutting. I'm leaving the roots. They regrow like."
We're
But
good
I've
here.
literally had I'm not gonna be an asshole. Like, yeah, I want to take the whole bulb out, but like I understand that if it's gonna be there next year, I need to like cut before the root and let it grow again. But I'm just interested is what's in season right now in San Francisco. What are those ingredients that you always look for in April, May? Especially April, May. Those early spring vegetables. What are they in San Francisco and in Florida? If Doug wants to get in on it.
I'll go after
uh,
Chef.
we've we've got a lot of we've got a lot of rhubarb, we've got ranch, we've got peas, the fabas are coming in, strawberries are slowly starting to make their way in. This for me is like my favorite season for sure because everything's really floral. We're moving away from like the root veg and like everything that's slightly heavy into things that just work well across the board. So yeah, and this is stuff that you can ferment, you can jar, you can pickle. and it's gonna keep beautifully up until the winter, where you can pull it out again and start creating flavors.
No,
Well,
that's definitely, that is what we love about spring as chefs. Like
yeah.
that light floralness of like everything's gonna be green again for the season, right? That
I mean, my
and
entire muffin is green right now.
that's amazing. And I'm definitely, I'm happy I'm not in the kitchen where I have to shuck a whole Lexon of fava beans or peas. But that's always a fun group project. That's our building activity. I think for all these restaurants that bring these products in is those super tedious tasks. Getting the dirty rams, washing them, drying them, storing them. All that to do with season. There's a lot of work to prep. A lot of these products, which makes it fun. And I think getting back to like those roots, right, of having a starter, feeling the soil that you're growing on and then utilizing that gives you a lot more respect for the produce as as a chef, but as anybody who does it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they're all living things, so it's all about respect.
What's in season
Right.
in Florida now? Alligators?
Well, yeah. Well, this is going to be a very short and sweet answer. Florida doesn't have seasons, so we have our continuous. We have tomatoes, we have cucumbers.
Continuous plethora of anything you want to grow because we're the
Well,
sunshine
yeah.
state.
Besides, anything like berries or root veg, or the farm that I just went out to that we're actually partnering with. They're going to start trying to do some green beans, and we have Plant City out in Tampa that always has really
Haired
great
coverts.
strawberries,
You're gonna
some
be doing
haired
some haired
coverts.
covers.
But pineapples, oranges, lemons and limes. But it's very consistent throughout the
But
year.
with that consistency, do you think you lose, quality?
Oh, 100%. I think that's why I sort of talked about it a little bit earlier on in this podcast. But when I went to North Carolina, I really discovered that, wow, this food tastes amazing because it has its short season. It has its time to shine, and then it sort of dwindles off and it comes back. In
It's like the
Florida,
McDonald's McRib. That's why it's so good. It's there for a short time. That's why Rams, every chef loves Rams because it's like there, you're going to preserve it, you're going to grill it, pickle it, you're going to make some powders, you're going to serve it fresh with, whatever protein you're going to do. And that's
yeah,
it. And then it's very minimal for the rest of the year. What are you going to have? 6 jars? You have to be, it has to be great because, you're not going to be putting I don't know. People do a lot of things,
yeah,
right?
I mean,
People
this,
do
this,
freedom. I
yeah,
just have my opinions, but
this cold heritage, the cold smoked heritage pork chop that I had in Asheville was definitely a little bit better than the McRib. But I get what you're saying. Is that limited availability definitely drives demand.
For sure.
That understanding of,
you'll
oh,
be
this is
paying
only
like
for
$18 for Rams if you're the first one to get them.
yeah, yeah. Definitely. Well, Chef, before we let you go, we'd love to kind of hear about, what you have going on, what's going on at Sorrel. Is there anything, you'd love to sort of speak on, to our followers, and just how's life over there right now?
You know what? I think that there's a lot of things that we advocate for in San Francisco, which is why I truly do enjoy living in the city and living in California. But something that Sorrel and I are working on right now, as I said, is like our rooftop garden. We're really trying to move away. So I worked for Korean Dining Group, and they received a Green Michelin star in the last year, did a couple of other places as well in California. And for me, a really big thing is learning as an industry how much food waste and how much waste we put out every year. And for me, that was a huge eye opener. So I think in this instance, for me, moving into a new space as a CDC, really trying to open everybody else's eyes to the correct way to recycle, to just be more aware of how we buy, where we buy, especially, and then again, like moving into COVID, um, working with purveyors, people that work on renewable farms and you know, not in this instance where their systems are more, what is the word? Um,
As in sustainable, or
yeah, sustainable. Just using renewable sources. So again, you're not gonna have that systematic farming where you push out X amount of turnips every year and then your land becomes barren and you have to move to a new space. It's a beautiful way of using renewable farming that I enjoy. And in all honesty, just moving away from waste, trying to figure out new ways to work with upper layers, to stop them in plastic bags, to stop having the wrapping, like the bubble wrap that we have. Um, and then honestly, other than that, I think like we mentioned when we first talked, the AAPI for the what we're doing with against Asian hate and just moving away from systemic racism. So there's been a lot of bake sales, there's been a lot of coming together as a community and raising awareness and raising money for these organizations. And it's really been, in this instance, it's really been also to see how we can come together as an industry and as a community. And yeah, I guess pure positivity against everything that's been happening throughout the United States.
it's a very important message to share right now, and we appreciate you being an advocate for such positivity and for such change, and using these talents that you've acquired throughout your journey for good, so to speak, and showing that anyone who's willing and who has the mindset can make that change and be a part of something, whether they want to advocate for anything that they find important in their life. Being able to figure out what you're good at and what you can do to help facilitate that is really, really special, I think, and something that sounds like it's it gives you purpose. It drives you. It gets you up in every morning.
It does, and I think being able to walk into work with people who are like-minded and people who are positive and people that want to work as a community, it's enlightening, and it makes you feel light as well when you walk in there and you have people that are willing and able and who want to contribute. And again, it's about diversity, and it's about really how you push yourself and why you do it, why you wake up every morning.
Beautiful. Well, Vlad, do you want to ask Chef?
Yeah, no, I'm just like you. This
I know.
whole pod was
Yeah.
amazing, and the
It was.
perspective that you brought, and the views and your experiences were unforgettable, and I really loved everything that we spoke about in this podcast. I think a lot of very important things were said. I think you have a really cool story. You've journeyed the world. You've seen a lot of different, walks of life, so to speak, and different ways to do it. And I think that it's really cool that you're able to be in the position to kind of implement these ideas that you've kind of lived through and perspectives, and input it into a culture that you're building and that you're a part of. We're super excited for everything that you have in store. Like we said before the podcast, or during the podcast, sorrel is one of my favorite herbs. And I'm just interested, do you guys have sorrel on the menu? Is it over redundant? Is it not?
It's everywhere. We have like our pre-dessert is a sorrel granite with like a mint and sorrel. Oh my god, my pastry chef's gonna hate me that I can't remember exactly what it is. Mint sorrel ice cream, and then that we do like compressed cucumbers in sorrel as well, and we have like sorrel in abundance on the roof as well. So it's everywhere. But again, the guests love it, and it's just it's a cool moment.
As I dig into my my love for sorrel, there's so many different variations. Is there one that you use and you prefer? Is it the green oxalis? Or
Red vein.
There's so many. Red vein sorrel. It's not the same. It's not. It doesn't have that sweet tart pop to it. It just has a really pretty look to it for sure.
So I'm gonna sound like a geek right now, but I love the sorrel flower. And actually, when you look at the oxalis in itself, it follows the sun and it goes to sleep at night. So when the sun comes out, it opens up, and the flowers do as well. They completely open up, and then when the sun
They,
goes down, they go to sleep because they come together again, and then the flowers as well. They curl up and they go to sleep. So yeah,
it is 100% what you just said. It's amazing because I wake up and all these flowers right here are open. But my question is, are there actual seeds that I can, reharvest on a plant?
It's a weed. It's a
Right?
so
It doesn't like it's not something that regenerates.
No, it is. It's a perennial. It like completely regenerates itself, and it's a weed, so it grows like right, pretty much like in most places.
Wow. Oh, I didn't. Well, look at that. We
Put some in the grass.
all learned some new. And I, like I said, I love sorrel. I love the name. I love all the food that you guys are doing. And I think you are 100% right with saying, Michelin restaurants have a lot of waste. We don't just, it's not cut your celery, carrots, put it with wings, and you're good to go. There's specific things, specific measurements that you want it to look on the plate. What do you do with the excess, right? There's only so much you could pickle, ferment, and then when you pickle, ferment, you're also, you're buying that storage, right? Now it's fermenting for however long, and you're paying for that refrigeration space. So we actually have a tuner, Mark Voorhees. He has a daughter out in San Francisco doing a lot of dessert stuff. He was actually on our pod. We went to culinary school. Doug doesn't remember him much, but I do because he gave me a pretty badass knife for a gift, and we've been friends ever since. But he's tuning in, and he said he loved his dinner at Sorrel. So how cool is that? And how small is the world, right? And before we get to our last question, and sorry for taking up everybody's time being here on the mic, not trying to do that, but kind of getting back to your early question and like, Doug wasn't there for that, but kind of really cool thing that we've been trying to do is map things together, right? We had Jeremiah Tower, and we had Dominique Kren worked for Jeremiah Tower, and then you worked for her. And it's just like all these, it's a big world out there. But when we're talking about food and talking about, the real food scene, right? Not everything else, not the McDonald's, the franchises, but the chefs that come into work and, are using farmers, are using really good meats, purveyors, everything, butter, eggs, flour, salt. I mean, it's endless, right? The amount of luxury in our field is pretty much endless. It's a really small community, and we, as we might not know each other, we've interacted with people who've known people who've worked with people, and it's just like a really cool thing that the more people we get, this global map becomes smaller and smaller, and like all these different interactions and people kind of meeting. But Kristen's question was, Doug, and this question's to you. Why did we start this podcast? I guess more or less, right? That was the question, Kristen.
Yeah,
like
Kirsten,
what Kirsten?
That's a good question. I think, we touched a little bit on it on our, 500 downloads today that we posted, but the main goal was really to sort of take this community that was sort of devastated by a pandemic, very out of touch with norm. We were all sort of floating between different jobs. I think I was probably early April or late April. I had just, gotten let go from Disney, and me and Vlad had started talking, and the main goal was to bring a community that all shared very similar experiences throughout these different kitchens in the world, and sort of showcase that in every single kitchen throughout the world, we can find similarities. That through every kitchen, there are very common core values or experiences or stories or that we all share and that we all can learn and benefit from. And I think that there's sources out there that do a good job of maybe describing or painting that picture, but me and Vlad really felt that the best way to sort of showcase that picture was to bring on those sources, the Michelin star chef, the celebrity chef, and just the chef from the local hotspot down the street, and be able to show that no matter if it's a Michelin star environment or just a really good dining experience, that there are similarities and that we do share common values and common beliefs, and just making this industry community we have that much stronger and connected.
I really appreciate that, and I appreciate you guys having me on. So yeah.
Yeah, now you're a part of that, so we definitely appreciate you coming on, Chef.
Mhm.
No, it was a blast. And to wrap it up and get me off this mic, our last question to pretty much, I think, all of our people that have been on the pod, all our chef friends and guests, is why 86? Where did it come in your life? How did you hear about it? And do you know what's the origin of it?
86. That is something that I heard the first time in the United States. I've definitely never heard that before. My wife is sitting in front of the computer, definitely Googling it right now. I don't want to know. Honestly, 86, it's the same thing that everybody foreign comes into my kitchen. It's like, what does 86 mean? So what does 86 mean?
So the genuine term of 86, is to cancel something, to run out of something, to state that no more of this item. But the origin is sort of varying degrees. We've had stories on this pod from, it was a term in World War II that correlated to the numbers on a radio. An 86 meant that, no, so NO 86, as in no, we don't have something. We've heard stories about old Vegas, mob scenes who said that, 86 mean to take someone 80 miles out and 6 feet under, to 86 them, to get rid of them.
I'm not gonna say my favorite reference because
Yeah,
Doug told me to 86 that one.
I did say to 86 that reference. You are right about that.
I just thought it was so funny. I mean, I think there's a lot of, especially in our industry, there's so much humor that happens.
Yeah.
Because we're a family. There's so much inside jokes, different, plot twists and things that randomly happen in our industry that's just amazing. And I think that's why we love it, so much. And it's, part of us. While we're at it, we have Tanya Jimenez tuning in. She says, go, yay, go chef. So proud of you. She's been awesome to work with. Happy she gets to, share her story. So thank you, Tanya, for tuning in. It's really awesome to see, that happening. So yeah, we have that.
I'm going to give Camaro for that, but
well, thank you everybody for tuning in and joining us and Chef Kristen tonight of the Sorrel Restaurant in San Francisco. It has been amazing having you on, Chef, sharing your experience, sharing your perspective, and helping us build this community one story at a time. It has been an absolute pleasure. And until me and Vlad pull up in an RV, we will see you next time.
Unless I beat you there. You know what I mean, Doug?
You might. You might.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chef. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight. Please stay safe. And unless you're in Texas, continue to wear those masks, everybody.
Have a good night.
Thank you so much, Chef. It was a pleasure. Bye, everybody.
Good night, everybody.